how to deal with the resistance, especially when it comes to growth. Now, when I say growth, it may be self improvement, it may be transformational journey, it may be raising your vibrational frequency or your vibrational state. All of this correlates to growth. That essentially means you transforming yourself from this current version to a new version that you desire. Now, basically, resistance, we feel that resistance is coming from the external world, it's coming from our surroundings, it's coming from the people around us. But most of the times, the most prominent form of resistance is coming from deep down inside. Now, the reason why this happens is it's not resistance on itself that we must fight or we must tackle, but instead the root issue that is related to resistance. So, the root emotion that is connected to resistance is fear. It's the fear of change, it's the fear of stepping into the unknown, it's the fear of losing your identity, it's the fear of changing your identity, the fear of losing the people that you know around you, the fear of losing your friends and even relationships. Because when you are, going on this path of self-improvement, or you're going on this path of raising your emotional frequency, raising your vibrational state, you're doing all this inner work and shadow work, guess what? Your environment is going to change. For example, if you were an addict, if you were doing coke, like if you're snorting coke every single day for the last 3 years, and now you decided to come clean, guess what? Your friend circle would probably be a bunch of coke addicts as well. But now, when you decided to mend your ways and change yourself, guess what? You will lose that friend circle of coke addicts because you guys don't really have that thing in common, and that was snorting coke together. The most fun activity that you guys used to go and do was snort coke together. That was fun. But now the most fun element out of that relationship is taken out because you decided to change. You decided to stop, snorting coke, and now your friendship is going to change, and your surroundings is going to change because in your surrounding, when you were an addict, everything reminded you of snorting coke. And same thing for me when I was an addict, when I was drinking and smoking and doing drugs every single day. My surroundings reminded me of my habits. It was a reflection of my habits. My friend circle, were a mirror reflection of me. So when I quit all these substances, when I decided to give up all of that and start, being high without consuming anything, just by living life, just by, being true in this emotional state and not letting anything alter my emotional state, not depending on any substances to feel happy, to feel amazing, that's when my environment started to shift. And that's what's going to happen when you start to change. Now, when you start to shift your internal world, like you start doing the inner work, you start, letting go, you start raising your vibrational state, you start doing all the self-improvement stuff, guess what? Your environment will change. And a part of you is afraid. A part of you is scared to go through this change because you have known these people for your entire life. And this idea of change is scary. It's like stepping into the unknown. But that's when you have to realize all this feelings of fear is absolutely okay. The thing is, it's not to ignore this feeling of fear, this feeling of heaviness that you feel on the inside. It's not to ignore it. It's not to fight it, but instead embrace it, feel the fear, and doing it anyway. It's because only when you feel the fear, you kind of acknowledge it. Like, okay, I am feeling afraid. I am feeling this immense fear of change. I fear losing my friend circle. And only then you can get this, idea that it's okay, it's going to be all right, and you have much more power to detach from that substance or detach from the people around you and let go. Because only when you do this, it'll be much more easier to navigate through that resistance. Because if you don't acknowledge the emotion of fear that is connected to the resistance, it'll be very hard for you to deal with that resistance, and eventually you'll fall back inside. And that is what happens in toxic relationships. If you are being living and thriving in a toxic relationship, guess what? Eventually you'll find a relationship which is healthy. But then this will feel so out of place. Like you have been used to toxic relationships, and toxic relationships are familiar. So guess what will happen? Like if you are in a healthy relationship, eventually it'll fall out, or you'll somehow, turn that healthy relationship into a toxic one. And it's like going back to baseline because that feels familiar. This new healthy relationship doesn't feel familiar. Now, that's the reason. It's because you have not processed the toxic feeling. The toxic feeling is familiar. You have not let go of that toxicity. Deep down inside, you subconsciously crave it. You unconsciously crave it. And that feels normal. And that's the reason why you keep falling back into the same patterns, the same toxic relationships, the same toxic, friendships. It's because you have not let go. You're afraid of losing that identity because you kind of change your identity when you go from one state to another. When you are, doing all this self improvement, when you are doing the inner work, you change states, you go under transformation. And that is basically transformation in a nutshell. It is okay to feel the fear, it is okay to be afraid, and it's also okay to lose certain people who you call your friends. It is okay to lose certain relationships because eventually you will find better relationships, you will find better people in your surroundings. And this is just a process. When you do the inner work and raise your vibrational state, you will find more people in alignment with your vibrational state, and you will find your vibrational match. So the thing is to stop obsessing over it and not fighting this resistance that you feel. So instead of fighting it, instead of dealing with the resistance on the surface level, come down the iceberg and deal with the fear that is associated with resistance. Deal with the root cause of resistance, because resistance is just a surface level problem of something very, very deep. It's when you do sit down, do the inner work, and you realize, okay, I'm feeling resistance because of certain things, X and Y. Deal with them, embrace it, and let go of it. Because only when you embrace the fear, acknowledge it, feel it to the fullest, you have the ability to let go of it and not be run by it for every single day in your waking life. So that's basically it. That's how you deal with resistance. So hope you like this one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.